Officers, we're seeing a trend now in people going to the police precinct in order to try suicide by cop. We get another example today. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Sparks, Nevada.
The Black Arch Protoss holster is the only hybrid-like holster that I can recommend. It does everything that a holster needs to do and is great for strong side carry. They're part of our holster consortium. Go check them out at the link in the description.
If you go watch the original video release, this one is really weird. This guy's parked his car down the block and then showed up at the police precinct with a gun, and this is very clearly what we would call a suicide by cop. So he's gonna walk around the precinct and start waving a gun around. And he waves that gun around for a significant amount of time, basically trying to get someone's attention. And then you're gonna see him after around 20 minutes of walking around like that, he's gonna take a shot in the air and just kind of have a desk pop to try to get the attention of the local PD. Now, finally, once the shot breaks, you're going to see after all the gun pointing that he does, a sergeant is going to walk outside to investigate what certainly is going to sound like a shot breaking, because one has. And once the sergeant, comes outside, he's going to encounter this guy. One other officer is going to encounter him with him. And that's going to lead to a huge SWAT call out. We have the badge cam audio from the sergeant. Let's listen in and see what happens.
He has a pistol in his right hand.
I know you're not. We're going to help you. Hey, but we can get you the help, okay? Let us do our job. All right? We can come help you.
He's ducked down behind the brick with the concrete wall.
You gotta drop the gun though, bro.
We can come out there and help you, but we can't do it while you got a gun in your hand, okay? You understand, man? What's your name, bud? What is it? Jason? I can't hear you. Is it Jason, you said?
Which side of the building is he on? Is he going north?
Go that way because he's got the 32
Yeah, the police are
pointed
coming.
west.
Hey, we are Sparks Police, okay? We can help you, but you got to drop that in your hands, okay? Let us do our jobs. You understand, bud? I'd love to help you out. We absolutely want to help you, okay? Yep, you got to drop it. Go ahead and drop it, okay? I know. We can help you, okay? Why don't you throw that out in front of you and I can get some officers to you to help you. But, man, we can't help you with that gun in your hand. You understand me? Jason, we want to help you. Is it Jason, right? Jason, go ahead and just drop it, and we'll get you some help. I can get some guys to you real quick, okay? Can you do that for me, Jason? What'd you say? I know you wouldn't, man. I appreciate it. Why don't you do me a favor, man? Just toss that gun a little bit away from you so we can safely approach and get you the help you need. Can you do that for me? Jason, my name's... Man, we can talk, okay?
Again, go watch the original on this. This sergeant continues on to try to de-escalate this guy and to try to say, hey man, we want to get you some help. You got to put the gun down. I get it. He's doing his best to coordinate communication with everyone else. They called SWAT out and, got basically a perimeter established around this guy so he couldn't run away from them. So we go back to the surveillance footage here. There are some other badge cams, but eventually what you see is that he fires around at the police department, and then he's going to turn around and run towards all of the SWAT officers that are towards him. So again, clearly a suicide by cop. We do have badge cam from one of the officers that shows a little bit of the action. So let's listen in on that one.
Ceasefire. Ceasefire. I'm good. Good.
They did try to get to him and render him medical aid. Unfortunately, it did not prove effective. He did not make it through this incident. No officers were injured. Hey, I know we're gonna talk in the lessons about a whole bunch of this, but man, I really feel like as a nation, we need to have a significant discussion about our investment in the mental health care system in America and trying our very best to divert people away from this kind of stuff so that we end up not in situations like this. That said, we're gonna focus on the tactical lessons and how these officers, I think, did a darn fine job. Listen, mental health crises are no joke. And if you or someone you love is suffering from these kinds of mental health crises, and in America today, 988, not 911, 988, you can call or you can text, and that will get you to crisis counselors that can help you. So even if it's not you, it's one of your loved ones, if you think that maybe they're a danger to themselves or a danger to others, please text or call 988 to start getting them some help. We put links in the description as well for resources on that, because these kinds of outcomes, Mike, I think are hugely lamentable.
Yeah, it's terrible for the individual who ends up dying, that they're at this point, that they're so despondent they think there's no better way to go than to end their own life. It's terrible. You know, John, I have suicide in my own family, and you know, the family of the person, the family that's left behind is going to suffer from this for the rest of their lives. When a day won't go by, they won't think about this person and wonder, what could I have done, or whatever. And then the officers who were forced to shoot him will never be the same again. So yeah, all the way around. If you're in this position and you know you need help, please get help.
I'm also going to say, I think this sergeant deserves incredible praise and great commendation. I don't know how much formal training he has in de-escalation. I will say that the work that he did here trying to build rapport with this man, incredible. So remember, this is the basic strategy we go to. First, we make contact, which means we know who we're talking to and they're able to make coherent conversation with us. Second, we build rapport. We find some common ground. We help them to understand that we actually care, and we make connection with them. Finally, then we start influencing behavior and getting them kind of to do some of the things that we need them to do to get them help, before we finally, number 4, achieve a useful objective, in this case, a law enforcement objective. I will say, kind of the only thing, and I think this officer did a great job of stepping around the badge, using the perp's name, as well as using his own first name and saying, hey man, I'm not some guy with a badge. My name's, I don't know what it is, Jim or something like that. To try to do some of that. He did get stuck just a little bit in a tape loop of, you got to put the gun down, you got to put the gun down, you got to put the gun down. That wasn't working. So maybe try a different tack. I got to build more rapport in order to, start to influence that behavior. Maybe asking him about what happened today. I'm sure things are going really tough. What's going on in your world today? So, and then empathizing with that. I'm not saying it would have made a difference, but it might have helped.
Yeah, I agree, John. I like to say, or I think you introduced me to the phrase "step out from behind the badge." I like that a lot. When I was working before I'd interview someone, I'd say, hi, I'm Mike. If you want to see a badge, I'll show you one, but let's just talk and try to keep it informal. I think in this case, this officer did everything right, with a couple of exceptions that are really nitpicks, like you mentioned a few minutes ago. But it's not just because you're trying to trick them into doing something. You genuinely want them to see you as another human being. Right now, before this whole thing starts, he's like, I'm going to this building full of mindless armed robots who all I have to do is point a gun at them and they'll shoot me. And now all of a sudden, this is not a mindless armed robot anymore. This is Jim, or this is Betty, or whatever. And it's harder. It's a little bit harder for him to make you do the thing he wants you to do if he sees you as a person and not just you seeing him as a person.
Well, and of course, we want to see these people as people. If we have the ability to de-escalate, these are human beings, and they're of inestimable value, worth, and dignity. We don't want to go about shooting people. And clearly this sergeant and everyone else here didn't want to go about shooting people either. And so commendable for that. But again, I do think we have to recognize, Mike, that the person who's in crisis here gets a definitive vote in what happens. And I'm sure this sergeant, I'm sure everybody else who's been on this perimeter for the last half hour, we joke that SWAT stands for sit, wait, and talk, right? And they've been sitting there for forever, and then this happens, and you go, gosh darn it, this is the last thing that we wanted to have happen, and you can actually hear that in several of the officers' badge cams. But, they get a definitive vote.
Yeah, another thing, before I forget, John, this guy, like you said, he had the final vote in this, and he forced the officers to do what they had to do. If you are an officer who's been in a traumatic situation like this, I'm not I don't think you might need to talk to someone for some help. You need to talk to someone. If you've been in an OIS especially, or something you've done has led to the ending of someone else's life, even if you think you're okay, it can't hurt to go in and sit down with a professional and go, hey, I just want to make sure I'm okay, because I don't know what I don't know. Unless you're a licensed therapist or psychologist, you may not see signs. People I've interviewed on the podcast more than once have said, I felt fine for a while, or I thought I did. And then, you know, a month or two later, I'm doing all this stuff that doesn't seem very rational, and it didn't connect those dots. So if your department says, hey, go see the shrink, go see the shrink.
I would recommend that kind of therapy for the family of the man who died by suicide as well. Suicide is a serious thing. Now, this officer here, I do think does a pretty darn fine job, sees the guy shoot a round off, gets a round off in return. I think he handles himself well. Clearly, he understands, you know, the basics of what he's doing. What I like is support hand to be out there a little further. Yes, that's kind of hard when you're sitting there on a watch for 30 minutes or something like that to constantly be in that state of readiness. Also, a moving target, even with a rifle at these kinds of distances, 20, 25 yards, it's not a joke, man. This is why we train hard to be of very high skill for these kinds of situations.
Yeah, marksmanship, you know, we bang this drum constantly. Marksmanship is super important, especially with a long gun when you're taking a tricky shot like this. Tricky lighting situation, you got a fence in between you and the guy, you're not in any sort of straightforward position that's comfortable. I would say this, if you can, if it's practicable and it's not going to put anybody in any unnecessary danger, if you have a situation like this where you're holding on someone for a long time, figure out a way to switch out every 10 or so minutes. If you can switch out people on the long gun, on the eye, you can take a break, get some rest your eyes, because it's like if you're sliding down the road on ice in your car. There's no point when you're sliding down the road on ice in your car that you're able to be like, oh, let me just yawn or take my thoughts off of this for a moment. The entire time that they're there, he is 100% focused on this, and that'll wear you out, not just physically but mentally.
And I think that kind of toll is maybe underappreciated. And I think he does a great job of communicating as well. This is a lamentable situation. It just sucks all the way around. There's no winners here. There's no, yay, the cops stopped a bad guy here. It's just a crap situation. And unfortunately, this is the reality of 2023. So friends, hear me. Let's get our loved ones to the best of our ability to divert towards better resources than this so they don't get to this kind of despondent situation. And let's make sure, officers, that we do as good a job as this sergeant did. I think he absolutely deserves a medal for how well he tried to connect with this guy and to prevent this from happening. At the end, unfortunately, the officers had to do what they had to do, but we wish it was something different. Let's learn from all of this to better cover our ASP.